and all the rest will go to those repechage rounds. Following the time trials to get seedings done, the men's sprint now moves to the last 32, and this is when it gets fascinating because we are going head-to-head here in the men's sprints in a whole series of heats, starting with Jeffrey Hugeland and Ethan Mitchell.
Yeah, nice match up there. Hugeland the fastest in the qualifying, but it's all about racing now, racing each other. And the winner of each heat will qualify and go through to the next round, and the losers back to the repechage. So, as we saw in the women's keirin, it's vital that you win so you don't have to do an extra round of sprinting.
Great psychological battle here as well. Rene Wolf, their former world and Olympic champion, holding up his man Ethan Mitchell from New Zealand. And Jeffrey Hugeland set the joint fastest time in qualifying. But all that is history now.
You often see the sprinters using mental strategies to psych out their opponent.
So the winner of each heat in the last 32 goes through to the last 16 direct. The losers go to the last 32 repechage round. That's how it works.
Riding from the front is very difficult unless you feel that you've got a lot more power than the rider you're riding against. Obviously the rider behind has the benefit of the slipstream, but also just not having to turn the head and concentrate, because every second Hugeland turns his head forward is a opportunity for the rider from New Zealand, Mitchell, to actually jump past. So it's a very hard position to be in. It's a vulnerable position to be on the front, but Hugeland being significantly faster in the qualifying, he feels that he can take this ride on from the front. There we go.
Great tactical battle here.
And what the New Zealander is doing is just trying to force Hugeland to go long. And he does it again. He goes up the track to force Hugeland to go really early, start his sprint early, and he's hoping that he can just move up on the wheel in the finish. But Hugeland is very, very strong.
He is so strong. Jeffrey Hugeland of the Netherlands. And Jeffrey Hugeland wins this one very, very impressively.
Yeah, I think that the only way that he could be beaten by Mitchell in that round was to be caught completely off guard, which doesn't really happen with the best, like Hugeland.
Yeah, the silver medalist from the last two World Championships, Jeffrey Hugeland, only been beaten in those 2 years by his countryman.
So when we saw these moves, the New Zealander didn't want to go to the front, Mitchell. He was just trying to apply pressure to Hugeland to go early and to put pressure on the pedals early so he could get in the slipstream and save a little bit of energy. Not many ways you can beat this man, Jeffrey Hugeland.
Yeah, he is in great form at the moment. Came into their team sprint combination in the knockout rounds and walked away with the gold medal. So Jeffrey Hugeland through to the last 16. Mitchell will go to the last 32 repechage rounds. So one Dutchman will follow another. The world champion will take to the track now. Double world champion, in fact, the last 2 years. Everson, and he will be up against Mohammed Shah Fidas Sarom, one of the two Malaysians in the field. Based in Melbourne is Sarom, coached, as Rochelle was saying, by John Beasley.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on a coach like John Beasley. You can see just doing up the straps of the pedals, which is an important role. You can easily not get those straps done up tightly enough, and a rider can pull their foot. Their explosive power is so strong that they have to have new straps for the Olympic Games and make sure they work really well as John Beasley brings his rider up to the start line.
Branson, like Hugeland, started out in BMX and into 4 world championships on the BMX. But to switch to the track, and it's been very effective. On the whistle.
very, very clear that the Malaysian wants to stay at the back, as his coach held him for a second after the whistle was blown.
Well, it's a matchup you would think that the Dutchman should have the means to win fairly comfortably, but it's a strange old thing, this the tactics that do play out.
Yeah, it should definitely be another Dutch win, probably in very similar style to what we just saw. But when you have a match sprint like this with a man that's so much faster, there's not really much that Sharom from Malaysia can do. He's trying to put pressure on Leverkusen to wind it up early, but the Dutch are too smart for this trick.
And you would think too strong, but Sarom is going the long way around now, and Leverkusen is going to open it up as they will come around and take the bell. Leverkusen on the front. Sarom has got a lot of work to do here as the Dutchman puts the power down.
Well, Sharon was hoping that the Dutchman would move a little bit higher and he'd be able to duck under him at the last moment. He got into the slipstream. Can he bring it home? No! Ooh, nearly touch of the wheels there.
Perhaps closer than we thought it might be, but a very good win by Harry Leverkusen now, as he goes through to the last 16 directly, together with his countryman Jeffrey Hugeland. And he's through very comfortably indeed. The time, incidentally, is only taken on the last 200. 0.063, the gap between the two.
Yeah, we definitely didn't expect to see it this close, but at the same time, Leverkusen knows that he only has to do just enough to make it through to the next round, saving a little bit of energy.
Well, in the qualifying, this was the man, Jack Carlin, who set the track alight initially by breaking the Olympic record held by Jason Kenny with a time of 9.306. But that was quickly obliterated by a whole host of riders, lastly by Leverkusen and Hugeland.
So straps tightened, and then the shoe covers placed over the top of the straps for aerodynamics as they roll up to the start line.
Nathan Hart was the 22nd of the qualifiers, and Jack Carlin third fastest.
Yeah, so we'd expect Carlin to be the faster rider, and I think it won't be until we get down to the closer match times where we see some real exciting racing happening. But Carlin just needs to stay comfortable and see what Nathan Hart can do.
Silver medalist at the 2018 World Championships, Jack Carlin. And no doubting Nathan Hart's tactics here.
It seems after seeing the first few heats that the riders with slower qualifying times want to take it from the back and maybe try to catch the faster rider by surprise, but it's just not happening. And it's interesting that they're not taking a different tactic, but riding from the front, it's also not going to work if the man behind you is so much faster. He'll get in the slipstream and he'll just come off in the final straight. So Nathan Hart, what can he do here against the very fast rider, Jack Carlin?
We haven't had too many opportunities to examine the bikes because they go so fast and in bunches, but this is an opportunity just to look at how different these two bikes are.
Yeah, absolutely. So the British have just come out with a new bike developed by Lotus, as you see on the forks, which is different to anything we've ever seen before. Now, these bikes do need to be commercially available. However, they put a very high price on them and a very long waiting time. So unless they develop something for the next Olympics, I don't think it'll be easy to get hold of one before Paris.
Start saving and get in the queue because you might be riding Jack Carlin's bike after Paris. Here we go, Hart going high, looking to dive down. Here he goes.
Yes, still trying to put pressure on Carlin, but he's just not going to be fast enough. He's got to close that gap and then come off the wheel. And Carlin is super fast.
He's closing it, but not closing it fast enough. Is Nathan Hart. Carlin will close it out for Great Britain. And Hart in second place, 9.829 is the time, but more importantly, Jack Carlin is through to the last 16.
We're seeing some great tactics by the riders who are finishing second, but they're just not fast enough against the rider they've been seeded against. So superb racing, doing everything they can, doing everything right, but when a rider you're racing against is so much faster, it's difficult to do anything. So he goes high on the track just to put pressure on Carlin to pick up the speed and tries to get a run off the banking. His aim was to close that gap and get in the slipstream and try to come off it, but Carlin just too fast.
Yeah, it's as this draw goes on, the racing will get closer because they are drawn from top and bottom of the qualifying initially. So the last of the heats will feature the 12th and 13th fastest qualifiers. You can expect that pretty close. This is going to be interesting. Matthew Richardson, a late replacement for Matt Glater. He comes in against Nicholas Paul, who's the world record holder and fourth fastest qualifier here.
Yeah, I think still a big gap between the two riders. We see Paul Nicholas being the faster ride from Trinidad and Tobago. And all experience for Matthew Richardson of Australia. Craig McLean, the coach of these riders who have been invited into the UCI program in Switzerland to do their training and preparation and learning from the absolute best.
Absolutely, world champion. And alongside Nicholas Paul is Matthew Richardson. On the whistle, they'll be off in heat number 4 of the men's sprint in the last 32. Matthew Richardson goes to the front, so first time we've seen the lower ranked rider head to the front, and the world record holder is laying off.
So Richardson taking the lead, Paul taking it high just to put pressure on him. Try to keep the rider in front guessing. He goes high on the bank. Paul, he goes high on the bank to get some speed in his legs and a bit of advantage to come down the bank.
Richardson still looking over his shoulder. They'll come to the bell now with Richardson in the lead.
Oh, the power from Nicholas Paul from Trinidad and Tobago. Absolutely phenomenal. Not much that Matthew Richardson can do from there.
Absolutely superb ride. Just blasting off after the bell was Nicholas Paul. Had that in control all the way round. Very impressive from the Trinidad and Tobago rider in the Caribbean. And he's through comfortably into the last 16. Tall ask for Matthew Richardson here.
Yeah, big ask. He knew that was coming, but it's all he could do. He'd seen the previous heats where the slower rider had tried to race from the back. He tried to race from the front. But the pairing of these matches are seeing the fastest riders against the slowest. As we get down into the middle of the pack, the racing will get a lot closer.
It certainly will. And as we get deeper into the competition, that's the beauty of this sprint and the Kirid with lots of rounds and the repechage. There's so many tactics that have to be played out depending on who you're racing against and what tactics they're using, how they went in the previous rounds. So the role of the coach and the analysts in all of this and the big teams is vital to give the rider as much information as possible to go on. to plan their strategy.
Yeah, and it's a difficult discipline to get right, because every race is like the last race. Now they've introduced an extra repecharge. It means that you can afford to make a mistake and still get back through to the finals through the repecharges. But it's a lot of demand for these sprinters, a lot of backing up.
Well, Ryan Halal of France up against former world champion Denis Dimitriev. Dimitriev, the 5th fastest qualifier. Halal was 20th, but an up-and-coming young Frenchman. One of his heroes, no doubt, is François Pervis, who's sitting a couple of meters away from us here, watching closely as they're underway in heat number 5.
Dimitriev goes to the front. Halal keeping a close eye on him.
Dimitriev, the world champion in 2017. He has been a serial medalist at the World Championships, 2 silvers and 2 bronzes as well over the years. Very experienced in his 4th Olympic Games. He took a bronze in this event in Rio. Well, the French have come here with such ambition to do well here and set themselves up for their games in 3 years' time in Paris. But notwithstanding, they want to get onto the podiums here, and they've done that already.
Seeing a lot of similar tactics in each of these heats. Dimitriev winding it up. Once he gets to full speed, it's going to be difficult for Halal to come past. Dimitriev now really in prime position. He's got to keep an eye on Halal.
And Halal's got work to do as they drop down to the sprinting line. Dimitriev from the Russian Olympic Committee is going well. Halal's closing the gap here. Is he going to have enough to get past him? No, blasting off the corner is Dimitriev, and he's going to post a comfortable win here.
We see these fast riders just playing it safe, leading it out, doing a flying lap as fast as they can, no doubt. Well, 9.8 in a sprint race is not too slow from Dimitriev, so happy with that ride. You see Halal here, his face of concentration. What can he do against the fast man, Dimitriev?
Yeah, very controlled ride by Denis Dimitriev. He's in good form. He's got longevity, 2020 European Championship silver medalist. There's not much form to go on the track because of so little racing, and that may be one of the reasons we're seeing so many records in a strange way. Riders have not had much racing over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I believe that's so. With the COVID era, a lot of these riders have had less travelling, less racing, and more time to actually build on their strength, power, and we've seen some super fast times.
And to rest, it's one of the most underrated preparation tactics in sport. Many athletes overtrain, and there was no racing, so perhaps not so much need to overtrain. In our 6th heat in the last 32, Max Levy, vastly experienced German, and he qualified in 19th place, and he's up against from Suriname, Jair John Emfar.
So Max Levy takes to the front. He wants to do what he's just seen all of his faster components do. Ride from the front, stay in control.
Jair John Emfar, remember, comes from a country that do not have a track, velodrome, indoor or outdoor, in Suriname. He moved to Miami and started getting into cycling there, and has had benefited from the UCI World Cycling Centre to such a degree that he's elevated himself into the top echelons of the sport here.
Well, Max Levy just trying to put him off his game. Nice move there. So fast reactions from Levy.
Faint inside. Levy's got such racing nous and experience here. Emfar is going to have some work to do against the big, powerful German. Very different physiques and physiologies here. Levy takes the bell in the lead.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard. Oh, we're seeing a Last move here.
Look at the speed. John in fast, going hard. Up Suriname. Is he going to get it? No, I think Levy just snatched it on the line.
Oh, I don't think Levy would have expected that. That was a super good ride by Jean FR. Absolutely phenomenal.
Levy takes the win. That is the first sort of upset we've seen in the competition thus far. He was the slow of those two qualifiers, but his racing nous and his experience over many, many years. Remember that this man has been to 4 Olympic Games. Comes to the 4 against a young man still making his way in his first Olympic Games here. So Max Levy prevails.
Definitely very experienced. He got caught out a couple of times there, but he reacted so fast just to close the gap, make sure he was leading this one out. And just gets to the line. Oh, it was much closer than we thought too. Super close.
Tie with Will Levy takes the win and is into the last 16 direct. Thrilling racing we've seeing now. It's getting closer and closer, as we've alluded to, with the rankings closing up.
We're going to see some very exciting reportages as well. The last chance to get through again. Now the New Zealander Sam Webster just getting taken up onto the track.
National champion, New Zealand record holder Sam Webster. Now he's going to come up against Matthias Rudik of Poland. So Webster and Rudik, bronze medalist from the 2019 World Championships.
Webster takes to the lead. Comfortable to be in the lead, as Rudik is comfortable being behind at this point.
Compact and powerful is Matthias Rudik. He is a serial winner on the World Cup circuit. With 3 wins in a row in 2019-2020's World Cup season.
Well, Webster wasn't happy with that position, leaving the door open.
Wind up now. Webster on the front. Rudik starting to apply the pressure.
Well, whilst Webster's looking behind him, it means he hasn't hit full speed yet. Once he starts looking ahead, that's when he's all gas. He's got everything going for it. And he has ridden a perfect race. If he gets beaten, it's not because of a lack of tactics. Just popped out of the sprinter's lane there.
Rudik's going to have to go the long way around here. This is a good ride for New Zealand. Sam Webster takes the win.
That was a powerful and very tactful ride. He didn't do a thing wrong. Came out of the sprinter's lane, down the back straight. But if the commissaires don't deem that as the sprint proper, no problems. So Sam Webster qualified, and it's official. You can see the concentration, trying to get themselves fired up for those fast reactions they need. So powerful. Once he said, okay, it's all full gas now, the stronger rider, Sam Webster, through to the next round.
Well, he qualified 18th and Rudik in 7th. And, you know, this is, Michelle alluded to earlier about the difference between time trial and racing, and having that racing nous and knowledge and experience, and being able to set a fastest time just against the clock. 2 very, very different types of racing. And we've seen 2 little upsets in the last 2 rounds. Now, are we going to see one in our next race? This is a mouth-watering clash. I'm sure they've raced against each other many, many times in the past.
I think this one's going to be super, super exciting. Wang, he is one of the most exciting riders to watch, coming up against Jason Kenny. We haven't seen the best form from Jason Kenny yet at the Olympics. Racing is his forte rather than racing against the clock. He's got so much experience. More experience than anyone else, I'd say, here at the Velodrome in sprint racing. But Awang from Malaysia, he is one of the most exciting riders to watch. Nervous moment for the coach, John Beasley, who's actually taken his Malaysian riders to Australia to base there in Melbourne, and he has produced some great results working with Malaysians.
Well, of course, Kenny's the defending champion. He's a two-time world champion, of course, as well. He's got a long career, so he has managed to win world titles, but that's generally not his plan. His plan is to focus on the Olympic Games, which has been massively successful. Awang on the front, Kenny behind.
Well, certainly would be a big upset if Jason Kenny was beaten by Awang.
But don't put it out of the reckoning here. There's Awang, equally experienced and wise. He's a very, very good Kieran racer. This, he's got the power, but Kenny dives inside.
Well, Awang wouldn't have expected that. That is a little bit of an upset for Awang's strategy. Now he's coming back. He's coming back through the slipstream. Will he be fast enough to come over the top of the reigning Olympic champion, Jason Kenny?
It's going to be close, but Kenny holds on to take the win ahead of Mohamed Awang from Malaysia. Jason Kenny given a little bit of a fright, but he does get through against Mohamed Awang of Malaysia.
We'll see another great race in the rapid charges from Awang, but it's this man, Jason Kenny. Can he win another Olympic gold medal on the start line for the replay? And this is the move. Jason Kenny ducks underneath. Soon as Awang looked to the right, he took that opportunity. And that's where experience comes into play when we get to the sprint racing.
So Jason Kenny, the defending champion, is safely through to the last 16. Courtesy of a winner by Mohamed Awang. And so he doesn't have to go the long way round in order to try and defend his title. But you get the feeling that never before has Jason Kenny been under as much pressure as he is this year these games to defend a gold medal. Big applause around the Izu Velodrome for Akimoto Yuta of Japan, the local man up against Kevin Quintero of Colombia. The Pan-American champion Quintero won in Lima, in Peru. And Akimoto.
The crowd goes dead quiet as they have a rider from Japan on the track.
And there's no question about where Akimoto wants to ride from. Of course, he's a vastly experienced Kieran racer. This is a very different kettle of fish.
Well, the fact that they're riding so slow, you can see the commissaire on the inside of the track there. He's indicating what speed they have to move at, which is walking pace. Once they stop slower than walking pace, then it's considered a track stand. At the moment, they are faster than walking pace.
And we'll see some track stands later on in the rounds. It really gets tactical and fascinating as these two are not going to do that just now because they're winding it up with 3 laps to go.
Akimoto wants to take this on from the front.
And Quintero's got work to do for the Colombian. He's going to go up high. They'll come around to take the bell with Wakimoto in the lead.
Well, Wakimoto just taking some height on the track, which is a good idea as he closes down to the sprint lane. It's all or nothing now, all the way to the finish. Can he hold on? It's going to be close.
The local crowd are loving this. Here comes Wakimoto. He's going to take the win for Japan and go through to the last 16. Big round of applause from the local fans.
They have signs up everywhere in the velodrome. No cheering and screaming, only clapping, but it's just too hard. They've got their masks on in the spectator stands, but when a Japanese rider has such a good ride, strong dominance there by Wakimoto.
A good win by Wakimoto over Kevin Quintero of Colombia. huge race for Akimoto, bearing in mind this is his home Olympic Games. What a stage to display your skills.
Still hearing the crowd go crazy over that ride from Wakimoto. So for some riders, the cheering and spectating lifts them. For other riders, they prefer complete silence, but it's well proven that having a home crowd advantage can give great benefits.
Well, you might be wondering why it's not full. Well, of course, COVID regulations deem it that just under half capacity are allowed into the venue. This venue holds 3,500. So each day, the tickets available have been sold out. So in effect, it's a sellout. But it's not full, of course, because the seats have to be kept empty. Sebastian Vegeta, the 24-year-old Frenchman who finished third in the World Championships in 2018.
These are the handlebars of Beretta, the Canadian, that we've been talking about. A new design, many of the teams using it. And Beretta's happy to take this from the front at the moment.
So Hugo Barret, 30-year-old who qualified 15th, up against Sebastian Vegeta, who was the 10th fastest qualifier. So racing is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, Vegeta being the faster rider, the Frenchman at the back. But what can Hugo Beretta do, the Canadian, from the front?
Constantly keeping an eye on Vegeta. Here's Barret as Vegeta starts winding it up, putting the pressure on.
Yeah, Vegeta really wants Beretta to put it on, and he has now. He's kicked. Can he get the gap big enough? No, it looks like the power from Beretta. He's got it in control at the moment. Oh, another kick from the Canadian. That would have surprised the Frenchman. It's going to be hard to come around on the bend.
He's going to do it, does he? It's so close.
Yeah, that was some exciting tactical racing that we just saw there from both riders. And it was the pure power of Vegeta that we saw take him through to the next round.
Desperately close, but Sebastian Vegeta is through to the next round. Only just over Hugo Barret, but he can take a slightly easier path should he progress. He's into the quarterfinals courtesy of that throw. Late bike throw to put him over the line just ahead of Hugo Barret.
Well, the racing has been close. Vegeta through. The next riders onto the track will be China versus Poland.
Zhu Chao, 11th fastest qualifier, and Patrick Radzikowski of Poland are our next player on the track. Zhu Chao, the only sprinter from China in this field, the silver medalist from the Asian Championships in 2019.
Stunning design on his helmet. There's the stare, the sprinter's stare. That's a mental game, and that's what these sprinters do. They try to psych out their component. Never really understood it from endurance racing, but the sprinters look each other in the eye and try to intimidate their component right from the start.
Zhu Chao set a national record in qualifying, 9.584, which is of no real bearing on this race, but it suggests that he's in some pretty decent form. And a man who finished 5th at the Asian Championships last year and was 6th in Rio in the sprint.
Radzikowski takes them up the track. There is a lot of positioning going on here. Radzikowski, he wants to take it from the front. What has Charles got? He takes it high on the bank.
The bell goes, and it's Ruszkowski on the front. Jushaw's got the work to do from behind, but he just comes down the inside. He's going to try and keep the sprinters line as Ruszkowski's trying to hold it as well. This is going to be so tight. Ruszkowski and Jushao says he was impeded there.
Well, it'd be interesting to see, because I think the sprinters line was already taken by the Polish rider, and he tried to come underneath, but if the Polish rider went out of the sprint lane and came back in, then he'll be relegated. But he has been given the qualification to go through. Nothing wrong from Ruszkowski. He played the rules, stayed in the sprinters lane. A big mistake from the Chinese to try and come underneath. Okay, he comes out there when he comes back in, so that might need to be re-looked at.
Momentarily the other side of the red line, which is outside of the sprinters lane.
Yeah, and once he comes out in the sprint proper, he's not supposed to come back in. Well, looks like they've given it to Ruszkowski, but no doubt there'll be a protest.
The commissaires always have their hands full at track meetings. There are plenty of areas to contest. The best place to contest is right here on this beautiful Siberian wood track. It really is spectacular at Izu. This track, Velodrome's been around for 11 years.
Oh, a lot of tactical discussion going on at the bottom of the track between Nick Lames and his coach.
Well, he's up against it here, the youngest rider in the field, Nick Lames from Canada, and German Stefan Vegeta, the world champion from 2013. 29-year-old with so much experience at racing in this sort of climate.
You would think Vegeta would have the experience here.
Our final heat of the last 32, the round of 32 in the men's sprint. Nick Lames from Canada up against Stefan Vegeta from Germany, a world champion, one of 6 in this field.
So Vegeta just giving distance now. Going to go high on the track, trying to put pressure on Lames to pick up the speed. He wants to ride from the back, but he wants the Canadian to do all of the work, and that's why he's pretending to come off and come around, just to make the Canadian put more pressure on the pedals and work harder. Vegeta's going to ride this from the back.
And Lames goes, and Vegeta has to work hard. He's got to go the long way.
And he's backed himself. He thinks he can do it. It's going to be close in the last corner. I don't think he's going to get there.
It's going to be so close, I think. Lames is going to get it, the young Canadian. A great win for him over the former world champion. That's an excellent ride by the 20-year-old Canadian.
Yeah, Vegeta really had the confidence to push him early and right from the back, but some extra power came out in that last quarter of a lap from the Canadian Lames. You can see here, he came out of the sprint line, but it didn't make any difference to the result. He powered on to the finish.
So direct through to the quarterfinal.